Cheat Code.
Hey everyone, welcome to Pickleball Cheat Code, the show for competitive pickleball players who are looking to level up their game. We focus on advanced strategies for experienced players, stuff only the pros really know. I'm Brodie Smith. I'm a 5.5 level player and a coach, and I'm here with my co-host, Tanner Tomasi.
Hey everyone.
Tanner is a 6.0 plus rated player and an APP gold medalist. Today, we are covering everything you need to know about being a right side player. At the end of the episode, we'll be chatting about our least favorite pickleball cities. Last episode, we did our favorite, so we're going to flip the script here. So hopefully we don't call out your city and give you a negative shout out. But if we've done anything to improve your game, share the show with your pickleball community. All right, Tanner, we just finished wrapping up that last episode regarding everything you need to know to be a left side player, but now we're giving out the right side player Bible here. So let's get into it. I'm going to start off with a hot take here. I'm going to go hot take to kick things off. You tell me if I'm right or wrong. I think a right side player, I think it's harder to play right than it is to play left. I'm going to say that right now. Thoughts, feelings?
Ooh, I don't know. I don't think so. What makes you say that?
Because, well, I mean, there's a lot. We'll break it down, but I think it's more overlooked than anything, or at least undervalued. I'll say that confidently, is that the right side has to be so consistent and reliable that if they are dropping the ball in any way and they're being a little bit less consistent, it's so much easier to pick apart that right side player. That's just how I see it. And, because everybody thinks the left side player has to do all these crazy things, which can be true. And, you have to be a little bit more mobile. But that right side player, if you're not able to be a consistent wall, then it kind of unfolds everything and you become a liability and, things really open up and you can be attackable and, you can be picked apart more. I feel like that right side player has to be a little bit more mentally tough too, in terms of just grinding out points and really, like mentally tough in the part where you're not seeing as many balls necessarily. So it's a little harder to get in a flow, and being able to stay consistent in that regard, I feel like is a lot easier said than done, where the left side player is able to get in more of a flow state and see more balls. But when you're seeing a little bit less on the right, I feel like that makes it a lot harder.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think playing devil's advocate for the left-sider, since they kind of control and dictate the entire game, if they're having an off day, you probably are like guaranteed to lose almost.
True.
Where it's like the right-sider can kind of just keep scooching over to the corner. But yeah,
that's fair.
It can't really go the other way because like the left-sider can't really scooch over to the left and then the right sider takes over because they have their backhand there. It's like impossible to kind of create off the backhand bouncing from the middle of the court. But yeah, to each their own. I'm sure they're both probably similar. Like
so
both have to be playing good.
Is that why you play right side? Because it's easier then?
Yes, that is exactly it.
Well, like I said, for last episode's sake of consistency, we'll assume you're a traditional right-hand player because of most people are playing right-handed. So let's dive into the things that are the most important skills to have for a right side player. What would you say is the number one thing that a right side player has to have in order to be successful out there?
I think what you just said is pretty accurate. You have to be very consistent. You can't drop the ball and start making errors. So the main thing is just consistency, I'd say, and good counters. So people are going to be attacking you. You have to be able to counter well and not miss.
So I'll call out, this is why I don't play right side. It's not because I'm necessarily just like good on the left. It's because a lot of this is coming from me, and why I gave that hot take. It's because I suck on the right. I used to be a right side player because I love to dink on the right side. A ball out to my right side, I can roll really well cross court and I can move the ball really well off my forehand. However, I'm so bad at countering. If you have to be able to counter like a machine on the right side. And this is why I feel like even if you were right-handed, you'd be a right side player regardless. Is that fair to say for you?
Yeah, I would be a righty, I think. Right side.
And it's because that being able to have those counters and those blocks are not easy. You have to have lightning fast reflexes while remaining very, very calm and steady and be able to hit down on the ball consistently. So you have to be able to read the court really well in terms of like where the ball is and where you're tracking. And if you need to be backhand ready, forehand ready, and having that control and that presence on the right, I feel like is so key. And then what we said earlier was the consistency part. You can't make errors on the right side. You have to be as steady rock. You can't miss dinks. This is why the OG Colin and Ben combo works so well from the earlier days, which is, it's crazy. I mean, it's a distant memory at this point. It feels like them playing together. But Colin, they were so good because Colin didn't miss a dink. He wasn't playing super offensive. He wasn't creating chaos necessarily, but the guy was 100% with his dinks, and that's why they're so successful and why he fits so well on the right side with that aggressive left side player. So being able to do that and being a steady rock is the most important thing. And a right side player has just got to love grinding out points. It's got to be something that you care about. I see some tennis players come over to pickleball and they want to, speed up balls and have the point be less than like 6 shots overall on average. But if you're there just to play chess and just have a steady day, like that's where a good right side player comes in. So I'm assuming that's you in terms of loving to grind out points. I mean, I feel like that's what you like to do the most.
Yeah, I like to do long grind points. I think that's like the fun part. Like I don't like playing against bangers. I like playing against people that like to dink and flick and stuff. Definitely.
How important, so we talked about the backhand counter, is being able to slide. This is something that I don't do as well, and also why I don't play right, is the sliding aspect. I feel like a good right side player knows how to backhand counter, and they could take it from a chicken wing. They could take it out wide on the left side of their shoulder, and then they can slide really well too. I would love to really break that down and the ability to slide a little bit more. Can you shed some light on that in terms of like how to read that, when to slide, when not to slide, in terms of timing your counters so you can always stay consistent with your backhand?
Yeah, I think the whole idea of sliding is so you don't flip open to your forehand or backhand like we were caught guessing because your partner has their forehand coming in. You rather just be all backhand. So when the ball comes, you kind of have your partner coming in and you coming in so everything's covered. That's what Ben and Colin did so well.
Yeah.
I think just I'm like I said, I'm lefty, so I don't really know too much about sliding. Honestly, I've never
That's
really
true.
had to do it, but just from what I see online, it seems like depending on where the ball's getting attacked from, they kind of always jump like a little bit out to the right side of the court, just so their partner can get involved. They don't want to stay planted, especially if the ball is like down the sideline and the opponent can be more tricky. It's always best to slide out just so your partner can get involved, and it's like a 2-on-1 instead of a 1-on-1.
Yeah, because let's say you're on the right side, a ball gets dinked out to you wide right, and then you hit a ball straight forward, right? And it's a dead dink. They can speed it up down the line, and then they could also go crossbody middle. And a lot of times what these right side players do so well is at the last minute, they'll be showing where they can get chicken winged and they can go down at their forehand, but they can athletically slide really fast and time it where everything stays on their backhand. Because with that backhand counter and those backhand defensive shots and even resets, being able to have everything on that one side of your body makes it so much easier to stay consistent and then hit down on the ball. And I feel like that's what you do so well, is you hit down on the ball with that backhand counter. I feel like you're always aiming for people's feet. And I mean, how did you learn that so well? I feel like that's something that is paramount to your game, is having that just slap down backhand counter. And it drives me nuts when I play against you too. So
Yeah, I think it was just natural. And like coming up playing, I think I like typically had like a softer paddle. So like instead of trying to hit through people, I just like naturally always kind of aim down because it like made the most sense. And then I think that kind of just like transformed and grew with time. But I definitely prioritize accidentally always hitting the ball down, and ended up like being the best thing for my game.
yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's crazy how you do it. You somehow just like get that teeter totter down, and you're just hitting people's feet no matter what, no matter where the ball is. It's impressive.
Thank you.
Is You're very welcome. And then one of the other key things that I see from right side players, especially with the ladies out there, like Annalie, who you played recently, and Anna Bright, the ability to have a strong cross court roll with your forehand is so key. So anybody that can apply that pressure, the girls on tour do it best right now, better than any of the guys that I see too, of being able to take that ball, get their right foot outside of their body and outside of the ball, planting, and then getting that triple threat position that I talked about before with your forehand, and then having that paddle tip down and then rolling cross court. and being able to move that to somebody's inside foot out wide, or be able to plant and then speed up down the line. I feel like that is the most important thing outside of countering that a right side player can do. And there's just a lot of room for that with your forehand, because it's harder to do that on the backhand side. I feel like, at least for me, I can roll way easier with a strong forehand and really open up the court.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think the reason the women are able to do it so much better than the guys is inherently the games are completely different. Like the guys are leaning into the kitchen, looking to take balls out of the air. So it's kind of hard to roll aggressively. Whereas the girls kind of struggle attacking out of the air, and they're playing like a foot off the line. So the court's just way more open, so they can just rip the ball. And since like nobody's there reaching in to flick it, they're able to roll a lot more aggressively. So I think, like if the guys played that way, it'd be like a different style game. You know, if the kitchen, it's like playing like with a bigger kitchen, you know?
It's true. Yeah. And that's why they can snap it and have it really go that high margin route. And that's something that right side players need to make sure that they're looking out for, as well as when you are dinking cross court, is really getting high margin so that ball is dropping down low. Because if you keep it high, that middle person that's straight in front of you, they'll be able to take their forehand and just take that right out of the air and put it away. So that's what I mean. So avoiding that flat margin dink when you're going cross court and getting a good height on the ball and having that really drop down. Don't be afraid to hit high and let that drop. It makes it really hard for people that are on the other side to be able to handle that. And then the other thing that's super, super key for that right side player to have is the ability to bake. And what I mean by bake is the ability to crash, right? Because if the person on the left is doing the shaking, they're hitting a lot more of the drops, and they're taking, let's say, 60% of those thirds, right? Like we talked about last episode. That right side player needs to be able to read the court and come in and poach with their backhand with a nice strong flick, be able to flash over to the right side. Like if a dink or a drop comes across court, if they can cover that ground and be that wall that's just terrifying, that's so key. Which side would you say is more necessary to have that crash ability? I still feel like it's right side.
I don't know. I'd say like the left side, because like the right side is crashing with the backhand.
So I agree with the backhand crash part, but I'm thinking just from a percentages standpoint, if the left side player is taking 60%, I don't know. I mean, there's two ways to look at it, but it is way harder to crash with your backhand.
Yeah, I guess it goes both ways.
It goes both ways. Yeah, it really depends. But as long as you have that presence on the right and you can come in and apply that pressure regardless, I feel like that's really, really key to have.
Right.
Yeah. And then another thing that I think is key is being able to dominate the midcourt in that transition zone. So if you're on the right side and you can have extreme consistency, obviously we talked about not making mistakes at the kitchen. You may not be taking as many thirds, but your fourth and your fifth shot, if you're in that transition zone, the best right side players out there that I see, like shout out Elise Jones, they're not missing resets with their backhand in that midcourt area. They can come in, cover a little bit more of the middle of the court as you're transitioning. Player on the left hits a strong drive, or maybe a really good third. Maybe it's a little bit too high. As you're transitioning in from the right, you're planting, you're covering a little bit more court and that aspect to cut off more angles. If you can handle those resets and that consistency in the midcourt, that is just so vital. What are some tips that you have for some of those players on the right that are looking to reset and be that rock to just not make mistakes there?
I'd say the main thing is always look to reset cross court if you're playing the right, because more margin, that's lower. Your opponent has a backhand there. So that's the biggest thing. And then always just like protect your line. So like if your partner's in the drop, you creep in, your partner will cover the middle on their side. You just want to cover like the shortest distance, which is straight down your line. Oftentimes the player, including myself, will get caught trying to like snag that middle ball. And then I get beat behind me down my line. So I try to just always just stick to resetting down the line, or just covering the line. And since there's only one spot for me to cover, I'm just going to be more consistent because I'm just focused on one area.
That's true. Yeah, covering the line is key. You cannot give up that line on the right side ever, especially when those left side players are adding a little more chaos. So the left side player that would be in front of you, they're adding more dimensions to your game. You can never, never, never let that line up. When you're resetting cross court, like you said, are you going straight to the middle or are you going far out wide? What is
No, to the
your
middle.
typical target point?
Yeah, like
Middle. Why
a foot
is
over
it
the center
just
line.
causing? Is it just causing more errors there, or is it just the easiest spot to hit it in?
Just it's easiest to be most consistent. I try to teach. Well, I teach, especially in like the YouTube videos and stuff. Like never go super out wide. The net's higher. People can earn. It's just like a small target. Hitting a reset is difficult as is. So to aim for like the sideline, it's pretty difficult. I'd rather go for the middle of the court. So even if it pops up, like I'm not going to just lose immediately. You know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's good to go for. Yeah, and it's going to cause errors too of who's fighting for that middle ball, like you said as well. So what I wanted to talk about too last episode that I thought was interesting is like what kind of players come from different sports and what side of the court they play. We touched on tennis players a lot when coming for, when they go play the left side of the court because they have to be a little bit more mobile, more aggressive, and a little more agile. So we see strong tennis players coming and doing left side more often. And then what are you seeing from right side? Because that's really, I feel like it can be anything. I mean, it could be a paintball player. Like you're a right side player and you came from freaking paintball. I mean, you have a little bit of a tennis background. And the other thing I see most is volleyball too. And the reason being is a right side player has to have the most steady legs. They have to have strong legs. I feel like if you have really strong legs, again, which I don't, that's why I play left because I got little chicken legs. But the people that have a strong trunk and they can get really, really low, get down, anchor, Elise Jones, for example, and be able to reset the ball. Also, shout out Roman from San Diego, another volleyball player that does really well on the right. Having that low center of gravity in that base translates so well. So I don't know what you did in paintball, but was there anything that came from that translates to being on the right? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think paintball specifically.
I don't think so either. That was a stretch to see if anything.
But like you said, volleyball, maybe like a hockey goalie, field hockey, like anything where it's like more defensive, deflecting, a goalie in general. I don't know. But yeah, anything more defensive oriented is good for the right, I feel like.
Yeah, anything defensive. Do you know any hockey goalies that have come over and played pickleball?
No, but I want to see them come over.
That would be good. That would be good. Start poaching some players there and see if they're good at pickleball and put them on the right side. What was I going to mention? The other thing that I was thinking about that I thought was interesting was how I've noticed that right side players, since they have to be that consistent wall, is that a lot of times right side players are really big. And I've noticed that the bigger targets, like bigger guys that are playing right, let's say for men's doubles, for examples, this isn't always true, of course, but like Eric Lang, or Lang, how do you ever pronounce his last name? Eric Lang. Thank you, Lang. He plays right side and he's massive. And there's a lot of these guys that are really big on the right side. And I feel like this is where the game's going to transition a little bit. Whereas we've seen left side players be a little bit bigger and have more reach to cover more areas of the kitchen, which makes sense for being able to flick, cover middle. But I've noticed bigger guys on the right can be terrifying because they're a giant wall. I feel like you can't get past them. They're able to hit down with that backhand and counter, reach for a backhand flick, and just take more out of the air and move the dink around. That's just me, but that's what I've been seeing for some of these players lately that are transitioning to the right side. Even my buddy Max, he's a big dude. He's crushing it on the right because he's a big, big wall and you can't get past him. That's just me. I don't know if you're seeing that as well at the pro level, but I've been seeing that more with right side guys and that transition there.
Yeah, that could make sense. I don't know if I've specifically seen it, but now that you say it, it makes sense for sure.
Do you think it's more important for a right side player to have a backhand flick or a left side player?
Left side player, for sure.
But so here's the thing. We talked about last episode. We said a forehand flick's more important for the left side player. So you're saying forehand flick and backhand flick are more important for a left side?
I think attacks out of the air, because if you're like grinding with somebody left to left and they're hitting wide dinks that are like high, if you don't have a flick, you're never really gaining an advantage or capitalizing. And like I feel like it's not too often that the right side player has a backhand flick, because if anything, they're like the left sider's there to take their backhand side. So they're more or less like looking for the forehand, I feel like.
What is the most common way that you see right siders applying pressure What part of the game do you see that happening for them the most?
Mainly their court positioning, like just getting big in the middle and kind of like anchoring down and forcing their opponent to kind of like dink to them, where they have to take the guys like taking balls out of the air, making themselves a big presence, and just really applying
Yeah.
pressure with like where they position in the court.
We've touched on this in the past. And I want to break it down a little further, because what you just said, I think, translates to this really well, is why do you think we're seeing a shift of that super steady right side player versus what we're seeing now, the more of the Gabe Tardio format of that right side player that's more aggressive and taking a way bigger presence in the middle? What does that look like to you, and why do you think the game's trending in that direction? Like, what does that open up?
I'm not too sure. I guess the way like it was like inherently played coming up, it doesn't really make that much sense. I know you have the left and right side, but really like you're just standing like 5 feet over to the left or the right. Like there's not that big of a difference in the sides. So I think like this is just a new style that people haven't really seen, and it's just starting to kind of take off that way till people really figure it out, like what's best. So I think there'll be like a hybrid until one prevails, like superior.
Yeah, because I mean, going back to the point of the backhand flick, and I'm almost in disagreement with you, whereas like, of course, the backhand flick is so key with that left side player because it covers everything from the left side of that whole section of the court. But if you can cover that middle section with a crazy backhand flick, because you get a little more reach with a backhand than you do with your forehand being pulled back a bit. So you're shrinking the court a little bit more. So players like Gabe, they shrink that court so much better than so many other right side players, that they're able to really cut off angles. And I feel like that is more important for a right side player to do, is being able to cut off angles in general. So whether it's a flick out of the middle or even just taking a dink out of the air. So like if somebody's going cross court trying to attack your inside foot on the right, if you can take that ball out of the air and not get jammed and cutting off angles and putting that dink back and just bunting back left, there's so many ways to maneuver that around on the right side. But yeah, it's really interesting. I'm really curious where the game will go with that. And like you said, what will prevail? I mean, I think we're going to see a little bit of both and different strategies throughout.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
What tips do you have, similar to how we wrapped up the last episode? What tips do you have for players that are going to start transitioning to the right side? Maybe they've been playing left most often. Maybe they're like a tennis guy coming in doing a lot of left, but they want to play more right side. What should they be working on? What should they be focusing on and drilling on the most?
They should just work on being super consistent and steady, like within their side. So they don't need to practice getting real big. They just need to practice staying small and tight on their side. Maybe watch some game film to see like somebody similar to them or somebody they want to replicate how they play and like how much the court they cover. I think that'd probably be the best thing. Just really focus on being consistent in a lot of drills with consistency.
Yeah. And then, especially just like those dinks on the forehand side, like being able to know when to roll versus when to chop dink. I feel like anything outside of your right leg, outside of your right foot, you should just be hitting a little cup, slice dink, and just scooping it back middle. Anything on the inside of your foot should be a little bit more of a roll, adding a little bit of pressure. But like we said, you don't want to be adding too much pressure where your margins are going down. You can't miss. You just can't miss. You gotta be that guy over there. So super key to have that mental toughness and that patience, because another thing of why I said it's harder to play right is that you have to have that mental toughness just to be as patient as possible. I feel like that's just so hard. No matter what your left side player is doing, you have to lock in, and that's not easy to do. Okay, cool. That's big right there. Good way to wrap things up. Let's dive into our least favorite pickleball cities to wrap up the episode. You may not have any, and this is hard for me to think of. I mean, I've been playing all over the US this whole year. I love everywhere that I play. I love the people that I play with in every city that I go to. However, I have some spots that I feel like could do better that aren't necessarily the perfect Florida pickleball scene, SoCal pickleball scene. Are there any that stick out to you that you're not a huge fan of?
I would say nothing too specifically. There was like an APP tournament in Midland, Michigan. And the only issue there was like it was such a small town that there were like no Ubers or anything. So the being able to like commute.
Did you get a taxi?
I don't even know. Luckily, I think we had a car. My friend drove like 10 hours, luckily. But like we didn't know there were no Ubers till we got there. So I think that would probably be an issue. But besides that, it was great.
Midland, Michigan. Where is that even close to?
I'm not too sure.
Sorry to our Michigan listeners for our lack of geography knowledge. Apologies. For me, have you played in New York yet? That was on my list.
Yeah, I have.
That was on my list. I luckily I was there in the spring, so the weather was great. But I was just imagining having to get around the city and taking the subway everywhere. If it's snowing and raining in the winter, you can't just have the luxury of, like we do in SoCal and Florida, of just driving to your court and parking and getting in no matter what. But there's not that many facilities in New York. And as much as I love the players there and everything, it feels like it would be super difficult and a pain in the ass in the snow. So for that reason alone, just for the transportation aspect, I've got to put New York on there. And then I also have to take a shot at Seattle, the birthplace of pickleball. Funny enough, I feel like has the least amount of facilities and the least growth for the game, despite being the place where it started. Obviously, the weather's not great. They're trending in the right direction. I think a lot of it was because rent prices are just crazy in Seattle. But hopefully, Seattle's making a turnaround here pretty soon. But there's like nowhere to play there, and it bums me out.
Jeez, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the more you know, Tanner. So bummer that the birthplace isn't where it needs to be right now, but hopefully they're catching up soon. All right, that's all I got. Sorry if we took a shot at you. We love playing pickleball everywhere. I can't wait to play pickleball in Seattle, New York again. So don't take a shot at me there. But yeah, that's all I got. Tanner, good chatting as always. I love you deeply.
Thank
you have a great day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.